This is Coach Jason Ballard, and I'm a business wingman. Over the years, I've learned a lot from working in our family construction business, serving as a senior officer in the United States Air Force, and running 12 different organizations around the world. Many people helped me get to where I am today, and it's my mission in life to serve as a personal wingman to others. That's what this podcast is all about, providing knowledge, tools, resources, and mentorship to help people soar to their highest altitude. Welcome back to the Soar Higher podcast. This is your host, Coach Jason Ballard. It's a real privilege to be with you today. Got another really good episode. You're going to learn a lot, going to have a lot of really good nuggets, golden nuggets of information that you can take and help you in your business. And so what are we talking about today? How are we going to help you today? Today, we're going to be talking about what's on the minds of every business leader out there. We're talking about gaps in the workforce with talent and development of that talent, how to fix those gaps and ensure that your company can thrive and compete in a very highly competitive space for talent and the development of that talent. Today, we have the privilege of having Chris Harris on the show. Chris is an expert in training and education and talent development. Chris is the chief revenue officer at a company called Tech Labs. They're based out of Fort Worth, Texas. They're the leader in providing cutting-edge education and training systems that ensure companies meet the skill needs of tomorrow. Chris is a fascinating guy, multi-dimensional guy. He's also an author, a keynote speaker, and he's in the Hall of Fame for martial arts. He's an expert martial artist. He's trained the military, special ops community in this space. Just a phenomenal person, very patriotic, red-blooded American that is just doing some amazing things to help people in so many different ways out there. Chris, welcome to the show, my friend.
Thank you very much. It's good to be here. One quick correction. I'm in Fort Worth, but our company headquarters are in Houston.
Houston. Okay. My bad. Thank you for correcting me.
But I am in Fort Worth.
Awesome. Well, Chris, my goodness, man, the world as we know it, the business community as we know it today is really struggling with, not only just finding talent, retaining that talent and the culture that needs to surround that talent to get, maximum profitability and productivity. But all of this stuff really stems around people's skill sets and their developmental journey that they need to continuously adapt to technology changes, to economic changes, to competition changes. And that is really becoming a struggle for folks. So, with your kind of macro view on this from, your company and providing systems all over the world, kind of give us an understanding of what's really going on. Give us the dirt on what's really happening out there and where people are struggling.
Absolutely. And let's talk about a few terms that are used interchangeably, but a lot of times are misunderstood. So some people may think that labor shortage is the same thing as a skills gap. Well, not necessarily. We do have labor shortages. And we do have a skills gap, but we also have a skilled trades gap. We also have a workforce development problem. We also have a human capital problem, as the United States Department of Defense calls it. And although these words and these terms and phrases are used interchangeably, they have completely different meanings. And I'll just give you an example. Money isn't necessarily capital. Right? Money is used to basically buy and exchange goods. But when does money become capital? Well, when that money is now used to make more money, that's when it becomes capital, right? And so when we think of labor's kind of viewed as money. But when we think of human capital, we're now talking about how can we help develop these people to where they help us make more money? And so that requires an investment. When money's invested, it becomes capital. Well, when we invest into our labor force or our workforce, then that becomes human capital. And what human capital means is that they're improving their ability to earn. And they do that a lot of ways, but by increasing their knowledge, their education, their skill set, their creativity, um, experience. And if we go one step beyond experience, what we're really looking for is expertise. And, there's a big difference between someone who's experienced and someone who has expertise. Just because you've done the same thing for 10 or 20 or 30 years doesn't necessarily imply that you're an expert at it. It just means you have a lot of experience. And I'll just give you an example. I knew a man who worked for General Motors for 30 years, and he retired from General Motors. And every couple of years, he moved to a different assembly line. But one year he was, making brake pads, and one year he was working on the dashboard line, and he eventually retired. And the only way he really ever improved his earnings was if the union, the auto workers union, kind of helped his group negotiate, higher pay to kind of offset the increase in cost of living. But there was really no investment that was made into him or his peers to improve their earnings. So that's a labor force. But what is his pathway? What would have his pathway to promotion or his pathway to maybe becoming a manager or a supervisor or a leader? What does that look like? And when we start investing in our people to where they can earn more, then the idea is that they earn us more. And so I don't want to talk about labor. I want to talk about human capital. And that's the investment that we have to make as business leaders into our people. And just like buying a piece of capital expense equipment, if we go out and buy a hat, that's not really going to make us much more money, but we go out and buy a 5-axis CNC machine, we can make a lot of money with that. And when we start viewing our employees as the future of our company, not just the cash flow of our company today, I think that we start really wrapping our arms around solving this problem.
Yeah, those are really great points. I like your definitions, and I thank you for differentiating between those. Yeah, because a lot of these terms and phrases are kind of intermingled in these conversations out there, whether it's social media or at the coffee shop. A lot of a lot of that language is being intermingled, and I don't think everybody fully understands the dynamics of those things and what the differences are. Chris, I do agree. We need to think about our employees differently, not just as somebody to come in and do what we tell them to do every day. And they work hard. We pay them a paycheck and give them some benefits, and then they go home. This is an investment. People is your greatest asset. They're their greatest um, source for success. But companies struggle sometimes with how they treat people, how they view people, talk with people, and invest with people. And some people, what there was an old saying. I saw a meme one time. It had not Jeff Bezos. It was Richard Branson, and he was talking to a CFO, and he's like, the CFO asked Richard Branson, like, well, what if we invest in our people and they leave? Then we're like out of all this money and we're out of the investment, and now we got to start over again. And it's just like this. Why even do that? And I like the response. It was like, well, what if we don't invest in them and they stay?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
How much greater are we going to be? And I thought it was a really good comeback and a way to view it. And so, what do you think's contributing? Like you're in the training and education space. You said, and we're going to talk more about this here in a minute, systems and tools and these, to kind of fill these skill set gaps and help companies thrive. But why is that mentality there? Why are people still slow to kind of, get out of the old ways of thinking and not moving forward? Like what's creating this situation in your opinion?
Well, I think it's a lot of things. I think some of it is because the supply and demand for talented workers was skewed in their favor. And,
Hmm.
I remember, not too long ago when, you could have a heart to heart, conflict resolution with a manager, speaking truth to power professionally, of course. And I remember the day when they would say, if you don't like it, there's the door.
Hmm.
And, that's part of a company's culture. A company's culture really, in its simplest definition, is a company's character. And when companies think that there's a never-ending line at the door of people who we can replace you with, their attitude changes. And what I don't know the name of the book exactly, but it's something like this: culture eats strategy for breakfast. And so, if we're
Yep.
going to fix this problem, we have to change the culture of our company. I hate it when I'm on a call, and I do a lot of consulting, or I've done a lot of consulting over the years, and I used to just really get perturbed when someone would say, "Well, we're a data driven company," because I know what they mean by that, and what it means is we put profits and dollar signs and digits and growth above all things. Because really, if we're going to fix this problem, we have to say, first and foremost, we are a people driven company. We are a talent driven company. We are a culture driven company. And the impact of that will be data.
It's interesting. You see that because there's a lot of talk about AI right now. Everybody wants an AI tool or a set of AI tools to do cool stuff and explore all the data and see what's going on and how to streamline customer service and how to automate things, and that's all good and well. I love it, right? But there's always new technologies out there, whether it's AI based or, stuff was in the cloud or moving stuff out of, their own data centers into the cloud or, these software as a service or whatever. You take your pick on what the new things were that people were adopting into their organization. But people will still spend millions and millions of dollars on equipment and software and tools or whatever, which hails in comparison to what they spend on their people. But the people are the ones that work late. The people are the ones that work on the weekends. People are the ones that smooth over a situation where a client may be upset with them, and they go the extra mile to do something special to pay the client back for their patience or whatever, right? So if you're listening to the show and you're a business leader, you're a decision maker, how much are you investing in your people, whether it's like really core functional skills or even the softer skills, emotional intelligence and having conflict resolution types of things, leadership, management. How much are you investing in your people for their growth and development compared to all the new shiny things that people are talking about that people are starting to use now? I'm just curious of what that would be. What are your thoughts, Chris?
Well, first of all, let me come back to what you started with in this question, which was AI. Because AI and robotics kind of they have an overlap, and we sell robotics. We represent a company called Fanuc, headquartered out of Tokyo, Japan, but they have a U.S. headquarters in Detroit. I mean, they are the world leader in industry automation, manufacturing type robotics. They have the lion's share of the market. They do a great job. And one of the things that I hear often from customers and from the sales team that we have, magnificent sales team that we have here at Tech Labs, is robots are going to take our jobs. I hear this
Yep.
all the time. And nothing could be further from the truth. Instead of, this is wrong thinking, but instead of being concerned about robots taking our jobs, we really need to be focusing our attention and ensuring that we have enough skilled labor in 2030 to meet the growing demands to where we can do the jobs. And look, these robots are going to need to be serviced. They're going to need to be maintained. They're going to need to be programmed. What this means is, look, the only way a robot's taking your job is if you become complacent and refuse to upskill.
True statement. It's been that way
If you're
forever.
concerned about a robot taking your job, what you're really concerned about is something completely different. Are you willing to do what it takes and to meet the challenge and to say, look, I see how this is evolving. And I'm either going to need to upskill. Look, nothing grows in the comfort zone. I'm either going to have to get out of the comfort zone and I'm going to need to start looking at certifications or qualifications or licenses or accreditations or finishing that degree so that when these robots become a primary in the workforce, I can raise my hand and say, I'm ready now to manage the robot if need be. So upskilling is how we prevent that from happening. A low demand, a low demand skill. Yeah, you might need to be concerned, but anyone who's got a skill set that's evolving, you shouldn't be concerned. I mean, look, and this problem that we have is not just in the United States; it's a global problem. I mean, you look at some of the countries that are having some of the trade, the skills gap issues that we're having. There's other countries that have it worse than we do due to all sorts of things, but want to be like low birth rates. I mean, there's some countries that are really scrambling to figure this problem out. Let me just talk to you for a second about how big this problem is and kind of where it's derived from. According to the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, and that's a pretty reputable source, the latest data shows that here in the United States, we have 8.5 million job openings, okay, in the U.S., but we only have 6.5 million unemployed workers. And that's right now. And this thing is supposed to basically hockey stick between now and 2030. Think about that. We have 6.5 million unemployed workers, but we have 8.5 million job openings. And that problem's growing. The labor shortage issue, this is as of June 2024. So this is a very recent stat that came out. But the U.S. labor shortage is estimated to be 70%. Meaning that 7 in 10 employers are unable to find suitable employees for open positions. That's a pretty staggering number. And there's a lot of things we can attribute to this. One of the things people ask me, and they raise their hand and say, well, Chris, how did we get to this situation? Well, first and foremost, we have to talk about the pandemic. And as a result of everything changing, the way that we did business, I mean, look, it was during the pandemic that, I learned how to do a Zoom call. I didn't know how to do Zoom.
A lot of people were in that situation. Yeah. Didn't even know what
Yeah, I
Zoom
mean,
was.
I used to get on an airplane and fly to meet someone, and I would, have a hotel stay, and I would have a Hertz rent-a-car, but as a result of the pandemic, we started doing business differently, and we learned as a culture and as a society that we could still do business, we could still make money, we could still be profitable, and in some cases, some business models they could be more profitable. But now what we have is we have a workforce that's raising their hand and saying, "I'm only interested in taking the job if I can work remotely." Or we
Yep.
have people who just said, you know what, after the pandemic, they raised their hand and said, you know what, I've learned to live on a lot less. And so now I'm either going to retire or I'm just going to work part-time or I'm just going to stay at home and be a full-time homemaker.
Yep.
Or we've got the third category of people, and that were people who were incentivized by government aid packages. And they realized that, hey, I can make the same amount of money if I stay home than if I go work a job that was paying me, however many dollars an hour. So you got people who were incentivized not to go back to work by some of the government aid packages. And then we've got people who, now this group I have a lot of compassion and empathy for, but they're saying, you know what? I'm using this time to acquire new skills, to further my education, to finish that degree, to go get additional training or licensures. And I'm going to re-enter the workforce, but I'm increasing my value. We've always had a saying when I was in the military, You want to increase your value, then you need to increase the problems that you can solve. Right? Your value will be determined by the
Yeah.
problems you can solve. If you want to increase your value, then show me you can either solve more problems or bigger problems. So that fourth group that's saying, I'm going to stay back because I'm going to re-enter the workforce, saying I have a higher value, I have more equity because I've proven now that I can solve bigger problems.
Yeah.
I completely get that and understand that. But the other thing that we have to consider, and this is a staggering number, so looking aside from the pandemic and the problems that that's caused for our skills gap, we got to look at the baby boomer situation, because this one should not have caught us off guard. This one we saw coming from a mile away. Right now, we have 10,000 baby boomers that are retiring every single day.
Yep.
Think about
Yep.
that.
The
That's the
pandemic really
generation.
started that wave. Yeah, absolutely. Because they, like, you know what? I don't know what's going to happen in the work market. Things are crazy. Been in the workforce for 30 something years or more, and I'm out. And they just retired. They decided to cut back and live off of what they could live off of, and they just didn't care anymore. They just walked away after the pandemic, and that's continuing to evolve, just like you were saying, Chris. Huge. And how, I mean, we all know this, right? I mean, our HR departments know where people are in their careers, and so people aren't planning. People aren't having those conversations. They're not, considering the succession. And and people that I work with all around the world, nobody talks about secession
Mm-mm.
ever. Nobody has a secession plan or is thinking about their workforce in a more total holistic view. And I agree that is a huge contributor. We're going to have to be more thoughtful, more proactive, more forward thinking, and be more strategic in our decision making for sure.
Let's talk about the bigger problem than 10,000 baby boomers, retiring um, each day. I think the bigger problem is this. It's this 5-2 ratio. And what that means is
Mm,
that for every five baby boomers that retire, for every five that retire, only two candidates of a younger generation, and that's going to be your millennials and your Gen Zers, are coming behind them and entering the skilled trades. So we're talking about skilled trades right here at the moment. So we're talking about your plumbers and your electricians and your carpenters and your welders. But for every five that are retiring, and we know that there's 10,000 a day, so we can do the math, there's only two of the younger generations that are coming in to fill those skilled trades roles. And so that's a problem. And we have to ask ourselves, why is that? And I'm a big fan of Mike Rowe. I don't know if you know who Mike Rowe is, but the Dirty Jobs
yeah, of
guy.
course.
And
You
Mike
got
Rowe
it.
has really taken this problem on with the skills gap, and he's taken it on. I mean, he's grabbed the bull by the horns. He's like, we have to address this issue in our country, or it's going to have a significant negative impact on our economy if we can't get our arms wrapped around this. And I was watching an interview that he was doing on a very popular news program, finance program, actually, and he's like, look, we've created this problem ourselves. He said, because years ago, he said, we put all of this emphasis on if you wanted to be successful, you needed to go and get a 4-year college degree. And he said, and we understand why we did this marketing and this PR hype. And he said, because we knew we would have a shortage of doctors and lawyers and CPAs. And so we knew that we really needed to build this PR around getting people to go to college and get a degree. And he said, but the problem is there was a stigma that came along with that. And that was that you wouldn't be successful if you didn't.
Right.
And so he
Exactly.
said, and so the pendulum shifted way too far one way. He said, because to be a functioning society with a strong, healthy GDP, we've got to have a balance and an equilibrium of both. And he said, so, now we've almost made the word blue collar dirty words. And he said, and they're not. And he said, what we really need to be doing is we need to be changing our PR to, hey, if you go out and get a certification, degrees are great, but they're not for everyone. But if you want to go out and get a certification, you can be working a whole lot faster. The income or salary that you're going to make right out of the gate is going to be a lot higher than someone who didn't, go to college or didn't go to trade school and just went straight into working or straight into the workforce. He said your pathway to advancement, you can always go out and get more certifications. You can go from a journeyman to, an apprentice to whatever, and you can scale up. But also, one of the things that he really talks about is, and if you want to be an entrepreneur or a business owner one day, this is the fastest track to do it. Because if you go and
Yep.
enter the corporate world, and there's nothing wrong with that, but you're probably not going to own that company one day. But if you go into the skilled
Yep.
trades and you start off as an apprentice or a journeyman and you work your way up, one day you may own your own plumbing company or HVAC company. And so he talks about all the benefits that we forgot to tell them about. I can't tell you how many times I've been to, dinner or out to a social event, and someone finds out, just through talking that, that I have two children and they're grown and we're empty nesters. And literally the first thing they say is, well, where are they going to college? Well, where do they go to school? I mean, it's like a knee jerk reaction. And that's a society thing, right? They immediately
Yep.
assume that my kids went to college or are going to college.
Yep.
Where did that shift happen? Because what we should be saying is, well, what do your kids do?
Yeah. Are they happy? Are they doing the things they want to do? Are they enjoying their career? Are they, achieving the things they want to achieve? There's, a lot of ways to, skin a cat, so to speak, right? I remember growing up, my dad had a construction business. So I grew up in the trades, and there was, people, that were well educated, went to school, that was in more professional services space. There was kind of this stigma thing that you feel like people look down on you, like the trades and the construction and in those things were less than. They were that's what you did if you couldn't make it in the professional services space, or you flunked out of college or whatever, right? And not true. I mean, my dad never went to college at all, but he got trained and certified, owned his own business for, my whole life, and was super successful. I mean, he had nice houses and traveled, and he was very successful and enjoyed what he did. He loved working with his hands. He didn't want to be in an office in a cubicle answering the phone all day and doing a bunch of answering to a bunch of corporate leaders that would twist and turn you in different directions all the time, and go through he hated that stuff. And a lot of people out there today are in the same way. They're tired of the corporate bureaucracy. That's why they want to work from
Mm-hmm.
home. That's why they want more ownership of their time and how they execute. They'll do the work, but they may not do it between the hours of 9 to 5. They may work a few hours here and a few hours there, but at the end of the day, that 24-hour cycle, they will get all the stuff done, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the other thing, talking about colleges and universities, is they can't keep up. Like, the stuff they're teaching is outdated. Like I remember going through, I was in more of a technical space, learning computers and technology in my undergrad, and they were a couple of years behind in what they were teaching. I got out
Mm-hmm.
of industry. I was in the military. I got out of that, went back to school, went back into industry after that, and it was outdated stuff. The colleges aren't keeping up with what the current needs, the faster pace, on demand needs of business really needs. And I am not sure that's going to improve anytime soon. So, and the debt. So you go to school, you
Oh.
rack up 100 to $200,000 of debt at these crazy prices that were, these colleges are charging for half of the stuff you learn isn't even applicable. Nobody uses physics unless you're going to be a physicist, right? Like, nobody uses calculus every day nobody uses some of the stuff they make you take. So a lot of the stuff you learn and have to pay for is really not going to be applicable to your career. And so that's where, these tech schools and these trades, colleges, that's where things are really, really taking off. And so I want to kind of pivot, Chris, into your space because companies are not the colleges, the traditional schools are not able to meet all of the needs and demands. And so they're having to go out and build it internally and train their own people. So how has that dynamic changed and what are some of these solutions you're seeing work with some of the stuff that you and others are out there providing? Kind of talk us through that and help us understand that a little bit more.
Well, we work a lot with the educational space, and we work with
Yeah.
secondary, and we work with post secondary. So we work with high schools who have vocational programs. We work with technical colleges, community colleges, and universities. There's a lot of universities that are adapting and evolving. Um, if enrollment is down, and we've got this beautiful campus, and we've got this staff, and we've got these labs, and we've got this capital equipment, surely there's other ways we can make money and help fill this need. So a lot of universities are starting to offer some of these CTE courses, certifications, credentials,
Mm.
certificates, licensures, and it's really this is going to be our game changer. If we're going to fix this problem, then it's really going to be an all hands on deck. And I think the universities seeing the problem and raising their hand, and then of course the government, the Department of Labor and the Department of Defense and the Department of Commerce, the Department of Education, they're all recognizing the impact this problem is going to have if we don't solve it collectively. And so now there's a lot of grant money that's going to schools, and how they get the grant money. A lot of them are formula based. And so, how many certificates did students who went through your program, and they took the test, and they did the hands-on and the written practical exams and evaluations, and they got the certificates because of your program? How many students this semester or this school year? And that's how much you're going to get. And so they're formula based, and it's really incentivizing these schools. If you take a look, the average college graduate with a 4-year degree in the state of Texas, when they come out of college, they're making about $28, $29 an hour. Well, you could go to a trade school for 6 months and come out with none of the debt, maybe a couple $1,000s versus 30 or 50 or 100 or $200,000, and you can outpace that right out of the gate. So and look at the rising cost of tuition. Since the 2000s, university tuitions have more than doubled. I mean, more than doubled since the 2000s. That's a massive number. So it's also an issue of affordability. So I think between the high schools saying, hey, not everybody's going to graduate and go to college. We have a skilled trades gap. We have a skills gap in general. Let's start, let's create a vocational program, HVAC, plumbing, welding, automotive, IT. IT is that's a big skills gap that we have right now. And so I think that, the high schools are really starting to step up with the vocational programs. The universities are really starting to step up and saying, other than just traditional degree programs, let's also offer things that address this problem. And then in the middle, we have the community college and the vocational schools who this is really what they do. This is their primary focus. But having these two bookends now is making a massive difference.
Yeah, see the same things that you're seeing as well, Chris. It is long overdue. We have to make these changes for sure. My daughter's boyfriend's father runs an electrical organization. I was sitting, we were watching, went to a football game this past year together, and we were kind of tailgating and hanging out, and we were talking about stuff. And I was just amazed at their apprenticeship program. They created inside their company an apprenticeship program where they can take somebody right out of high school, put them through a 1 year structured apprentice program with hands on, training and going out to job sites and doing work underneath a more experienced person. And it's very structured, very well, organized. And at the end of that program, they can get a license in electrical work and be making $80,000. I thought that was excellent. I thought, wow, that's a really great program. He said that some of the other electrical groups in and outside of the state of Kentucky, where I live, are coming to them looking to benchmark something like that because it's a proven thing. But you're seeing that more and more and more. I know people in the HVAC business that are doing similar types of things, and the manufacturers of these HVAC systems or whatever, they're actually creating curriculum at that level, and companies can send people to their school and train at the factory and learn how the equipment's made, and just phenomenal programs. So talk to us about tech labs and your company and some of the great work you're doing and how you are contributing to filling these gaps, because it's really amazing.
Well, we partner with manufacturers that are very strong in their field, very reputable in their field. Companies like, for example, you mentioned where you're at in Kentucky. One of our partners is a company called Amatrol, and Amatrol is one of the foremost manufacturers of technical training aids. And not, you may have some listeners who are saying, well, what's a technical training aid, and why would EDU
Yeah.
or education need that? Well, you've got to look at it from the perspective of, these certifications that these students are seeking or should be seeking. These should be nationally recognized industry based certifications. So if you're someone who's listening and you're not a business owner, you're someone who's listening and you're thinking, I'm thinking about going into the skilled trades. Well, choose a program that's going to provide you with a nationally recognized industry-based certification, first and foremost. And that's where a company like Amatrol really comes in. Because if I'm a trade school and I want to offer an industry-based certification. Well, I'm not going to actually provide the certification, but I'm going to give you the training that's going to give you a 98% pass rate. As long as you come to class every day and you do the curriculum and you get good grades, there's going to be a 98% chance that when you go take that exam, that you're going to pass and you're going to get that certification. Well, that would be very important to me. I would want to know that the school was offering industry-based, nationally recognized. And so when you look at
Yep.
companies like Amatrol, for example, Amatrol makes the equipment that the students would actually be using during their exam. So if I'm going to teach you how to go pass this exam and prepare you for that adequately to where you're going to get out there and you're going to crush it, wouldn't it be in my best interest and the best interest of my school or my institution to use the equipment that you're going to be tested on or that's going to be used during your practical exam? So we try to partner with companies that are recognized and accepted and adopted by these nationally based credentialing agencies. And we want to make sure that they're going to be using equipment that is very familiar to them when they're in that exam and they're sweating bullets and they're like, I just spent all this money to go through this 6-month program. I need to pass. Nobody wants to fail that, right? And
Right.
so we partner with companies like Amatrol, who really, in my opinion, at least in the United States, they're the 800-pound gorilla. They're the ones who, they've got hundreds of products, if not more. They're very well recognized throughout the industry, especially in their niche markets. And we're going to make sure that we're providing that equipment to the schools that want to offer the learning environment for these students to know that when you're done here, you're going to go and you're going to take that exam and you're going to get that certificate and you're going to be able to go out into the workforce and you're going to have some equity. You're going to have skills. You're going to have expertise. You're going to have experience. You're going to have qualifications. You might even, have a certificate on the wall. That's what people want. They want to know that they can take the information they're about to pay for and they can monetize it in the shortest amount of time possible. That's what they want. And that's how we do that by
Yep.
offering, we get between the educational institution, whether it be the vocational school or a community college, we get between them and the manufacturer, and we become that just very much needed resource of helping them navigate all that through the e-learning and through the training and through the support and through the installation and making sure the equipment is installed in a timely manner and calling us first if it's not working the way it needs to be working. You got 30 students showing up and your technical training aid's not working. That would not be good. So we get between these manufacturers, like Fanuc and like Amatrol and these institutions, and we make sure that everything runs smoothly, and we do it very, very well. And we're now actually starting to become very active in with the Department of Defense as well. I don't know if probably a lot of people that don't know this, but the U.S. Department of Defense is the largest employer in the United States. Think about that. They've
Yep.
got 2.1 million service members. That's between active and reserves and guard, but 2.1 million service members. And then they have almost 800,000 civilian employees. That
Yep.
is the largest employer in the United States. And they have raised their hand. The Department of Defense has raised their hand and said, we can't build submarines fast enough. We can't repair, our aircraft and our tanks and our armored vehicles fast enough. We need welders. We need plumbers. We need electricians. I'll give you just one example here. I was out at Norfolk Naval Shipyard in Norfolk, Virginia, working with the leaders of the shipyard, and they've got 10,000 employees there. Well, 9,000 are civilians. Only 1,000 are uniformed. And these are tradespeople who have to be upskilling constantly if they're going to be able to
Yep.
get these ships out in 1 year versus getting them out in 3 years. And what does that look like to our military industrial complex? What does that look like for protecting our nation's sovereignty? So, it's not just about the economy. It's not just about um, students being able to go into the workforce in a shorter amount of time and have higher earnings and a better pathway to one day business ownership or to advancement promotion. It's now also a matter of national security for our country.
Yep. Yep. Because, the government doesn't build things, they just execute things, right? So all of the people that build the ships, the planes, the tanks, the vehicles, the whatever, they're relying on industry. They're relying on, the civilian sector out there of these, various types of companies, small companies to the big companies to, be the experts to because it's hard to stay up to date on things when you're in the government. It's a big organization, so they lean on these other types of faster, leaner, more nimble, innovative companies to fill these gaps. And now we're seeing this magnified, just like you said, across national security. Now creating some national security concerns. So great episode here. It seems like to me, Chris, that we really need a mindset shift. Boy, easy for me to say, right? We need to start changing the way we think as leaders of our company, because this is a team sport. It doesn't matter if you've got a small business in Podunk, Iowa somewhere, or a big company in New York City. Like, this is a team sport. It's a global economy. It is an interconnected world. It's an interdependent world where things that happen in our country, things that happen in different parts of the world have a significant impact on you and your small town. Just take COVID, for instance, right? COVID affected everybody, everywhere, in every way. Nobody escaped COVID. Even in the smallest, most remote town in the United States of America, Bardstown, Kentucky, was still impacted by COVID. Well, think about other economic things. Think about natural disasters. Think about, all kind of other things that could potentially be a disruption to your business that you may or may not have control over, right? But what you do have control over is your people. What you do have control over is the ability to plan and think differently about your people and where they're at and what the needs are, 10, 15 years out, and how do you stay competitive in that landscape, right? I think we need to challenge the leadership of the people that make decisions in these organizations, government and corporate and, small business, to think differently about, as you talked about earlier in this show, your capital. Your people are capital. You have to, once you have a company that requires people, and the people that are buying this stuff from you are people. It's like having a child. When you have a baby and you bring it home from the hospital, like, you have to feed it. You have to
Mhm.
take care of it. You have to clothe it. There is no other option, right? I guess you can, put it up for adoption if you wanted to, but once that is, in place, you have to care and feed for that. Or what happens? What happens if you don't spend time with your kids? What happens if you don't spend time, putting them in school and making sure they get good grades? What happens if you don't make sure they don't get in trouble with the law or whatever, right? Like, you have to be engaged and be thinking about that in different ways. Your employees are the same way. Like they're there. They're depending on you for guidance and direction and leadership. They're depending on you to help point them in the right direction and shape them in accordance to where they want to go in their career, and even knowing the opportunities and learning and developing. Or they just get complacent, they just get lazy, they get bored, they don't feel valued and appreciated, and they leave.
It's a great analogy. I mean, if you don't invest in your children, there's going to come a day to where you're eating Thanksgiving dinner alone.
Yeah.
What's the song? The Cat's in the Cradle.
Yep.
I mean, that song is very. You should pay attention to it when you listen to it if you're a father. But I tell people, and I don't do as much consulting today because I'm really focused on my role at Tech Labs, and we have a lot of things that we're involved in right now. But I've done a lot of consulting in the past, and I will tell you that when someone says, "Hey, we have a turnover problem," I would always say, "Well, tell me what kind of turnover problem you have." And if it came down to where people were leaving, um, because a competitor offered them, a 40 or 50% pay increase, I can't really speak to that. I mean, I get it. That's a pretty compelling reason for a lot of people. That's a lot of money for a lot of people. But if you tell me that you're losing people because someone gave them a 10% switching premium, you have a culture problem. If you have people leaving your company and starting over, nobody likes starting over. Starting over is hard. Well, I shouldn't say nobody. I guess
Right.
there are people, but most people do not like starting from scratch. So if you've got people who are fleeing your company and going into the arms of a competitor for a 10% switching premium, you've got a culture problem.
Yeah. Well, I'd even challenge you on that and say retention issues and turnover, you've got a leadership problem. It's
Well,
bigger than
look,
just
I've
culture.
never known a company. I've never known a company that was able to solve or fix or repair a culture problem without it starting in the C-suite.
That's exactly right. Exactly
It's
right.
always a leadership problem. I mean, look, leadership reflects attitude.
Yeah, it reflects everything. Everything. People are watching the leadership, they emulate the leadership. Absolutely. Well, Chris, boy, my goodness, I feel like we just scratched the surface on this topic and, gave a lot of important information out there, inform people on what's going on and ways they may or may not be familiar with. And I think you did a heck of a job talking about the different options out there that they can be, looking at, right? So if you're a business leader out there and you're struggling in your business with talent and retention and training and developing and keeping your people skills up to speed to meet the demands of today and tomorrow, I highly encourage you to reach out to Chris. He's a great patriot, an ex-military guy. He's put his heart and soul into, helping people in a lot of different ways. And this is something he's super passionate about, knows a lot about it clearly, and that can really kind of point you in the right direction and offer you up some potential options you may not even be aware of or even be thinking about. That can be a game changer for you, right? You, as a leader, you need to be, staying sharp. You need to be staying in touch with industry experts and the benchmarks out there of things that are working and not working. And I will personally attest to Chris and his team that the things they're doing are making a difference. They are continuing to level people up and prepare people for more and more success going forward. And so thank you for what you do, Chris. Thank you for your service. Thank you for being on the show today. People want to reach out, talk to you, learn more, and dive deeper into this. What's the best way for them to contact you?
Probably through email, chris.harris@techlabs.com. And Tech Labs has a hyphen, tech-labs. So chris.harris
Okay.
at tech-labs.com.
Awesome. Thank you, Chris. We're going to also make sure that gets put in the show notes as well to, help people find you faster that way. Appreciate what you do. That's it for today's show, everybody. Next week, we've got another great show in store for you. We're going to be talking about some of the different aspects of technology and data you may not be familiar with, and how certain people are leveraging that in the philanthropic manner in the nonprofit space to really bring communities together and make the world a better place, an inclusive place. It's an amazing story, an amazing person we're going to have on the show to talk about how all of the intersection of all of those things is breeding some amazing things. You're going to learn a lot from it. Don't want to miss it. That's it for today. Have a great week, everybody.
Thank you.